Hey there, hope you're doing well. Welcome to Snowpal's Software Development and Architecture Podcast. This is podcast 5 in the Salesforce series. If you haven't seen the previous ones, I highly recommend that you do so because we're just going to kind of pick up from where we left off there. Let me do some screen share and we'll get started without further ado. So let me uh, share my entire screen here. Okay, let me move this window out. Okay. Um, so let's see. In the fourth one, we actually looked at the code builder. We played around with it, created some examples. We looked at the design center and the exchange as well, right? So these were the three things we looked at the highest level. We created this hello world. We published it, did some customizations, created some endpoints, and so on and so forth. Let's just keep going, right? Again, if you haven't watched the other four, I highly recommend you do so. By virtue of introduction, at least to this series, I've not done much work in the area of Salesforce, except a couple of barring a couple of integrations I did a while ago. So about 3 to 4 months, if that, right? I haven't done significant amount of work on this platform on Salesforce. I was just curious because people asked me some questions about it recently. I was like, okay, why not just give it a look and see, give my initial, my 2 cents. And if you haven't used this platform, maybe my hope is that the series actually helps you get acquainted, sort of get acclimated to the user interface, the process, to the extent possible. And I like pretty much, as is the case with all of my podcasts, I come, hit record, and then start figuring this out as we go along with you, except that you're not here, but I do it that way. So if you're expecting a more traditional form of teaching and tutorial, this is not going to be it. But if you've enjoyed the other podcasts, then I hope you continue to enjoy. I hope that you'll enjoy this one as well because it's going to be along those same lines. Okay, now that it is recording, let's actually let's go to data graph, right? Let's see what that is. Again, I've not seen any of this ever before. So I'm looking at it with you as I'm recording, right? So we're going to make some mistakes, plenty of mistakes, discover, find our ways out of there, and then have some understanding of what these things are. That's the idea, to kind of understand and have fun in the process. Okay. And we also, one more thing to add is, I think we did look at the data weave, if I remember correctly, the DSL language in the last one of the last podcasts, and I thought it was a good experience where I had never heard of that before, so we just tried it out, played for it a bit, and at the end of the 30 minutes, I think we came out of it with a fair understanding of how to use or write code in that DSL. Some Let's just take that similar approach here, right? Data graph, absolutely no idea what that is. Let's see what it says here. Start building your unified schema. Before creating your schema, we'll first need to get an API added. I think we already created one, so we should be able to use this. It says configure URL. Gonna pick all the defaults. Okay, it says everything looks good. Get an existing URL from the platform or add a new URL. Okay, it says this is for when the API is being managed in API Manager, or if the API URL has been manually added to Exchange. You choose a new URL if choose this option if you want to manually add a URL for this API. Let's just go with the default here, right? I'm not even going to edit that. I'm going to click next. Authentication policy. We had seen that. Let's see if. Oops, I actually should have moved it here, but that's all right. Let me actually do that. I'm gonna go from here to here. Yep. Okay. Let's see the auth policy. Trying to think where we were at with the previous one. Yep, I remember that. We used a couple of different methods to do this, right? We had a auth header called MS2 authorization. This actually will not work now because the session would have expired, but you can all replace it. We added an environment variable for authorization, and then we used it here. Let's run this, and it's going to say, of course, it expired, right? So let's actually, you know what? I'm not going to update it right now. Um, so let's see what. Let's go. Should we? I'm trying to understand what relevance it has to do with the endpoint security that we actually supported. Let's just go with the. Let's see. Basic auth, client ID, custom headers. I would want to go with custom headers. Let's just pick custom headers, right? Okay. I it's picking up the password. I certainly don't want to show it. So let's just do no auth, right, for now. Um, Preview schema. Okay, let's see. I'm just gonna click next here. Okay, I'm just curious suddenly. Let's see what data graph. Salesforce. Looks like we've done a lot of this before, so I want to understand what their product is. Data graphs are a way to visualize the data you have available, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you know what? Before we do any reading, let's keep going. Let's see what happens here. Okay, I'm not going to edit. It says rename, change to new greeting. Just give it a name. It doesn't like the underscore. Rename method, new greeting one. Change both of them. Just going to click on we are updating the unified schema. It may take up to 15 minutes. Says 15 minutes. Given that we don't have much going on here, let's see how long this actually takes. Hopefully it doesn't take 15 minutes. Otherwise, I'll have to twiddle my thumbs and look at this. But maybe we'll do some more discovery in the meantime. So it has the environment status. It's still doing it. This is the GraphQL. The data. Okay. So we added a RESTful endpoint. This seems to provide a graph equivalent. Maybe the data graph is essentially creating a graph equivalent of the REST endpoints that we added. Let's see. That's kind of what it looks like to me. Let's see. List of APIs added. We added a couple of them. Settings. Okay, number of calls. Okay, we don't need to worry about those. Um, let's just wait a minute. Okay, fundamental concepts. Let's see. Level 1 nested types. Unified schema. Collaboration. Linking. And then this merging. Okay, I'm not going to play those videos right now. Uh, let's see. While it does that in the background, let's try to read up a little bit. Salesforce Data Graph. Einstein Copilot. What is Einstein? Conversational AI assistant, every CRM application. Okay. Um, what are data graphs? When designing prompts in Prompt Builder, assigning skills, you may need to check blah, blah, blah. Data graphs and data cloud enable you to visualize the relationship between data model objects. Not, yeah, I think this maybe it's a different data graph than the one we are actually looking at. Um, yeah, I have a feeling that data graph is, this is MuleSoft Data Graph. Let's see. MuleSoft Data Graph. Yep, this is probably completely a different product. So I guess sales was, I presume, acquired MuleSoft. Probably there are products with the same name, so that's a little bit confusing. What is data graph? Every time you add a new API to your network, Anypoint stores it as a graph of metadata. Data graph enables you to connect those graphs into one schema that runs as a single SaaS GraphQL endpoint and contains and links all of the fields defined within all of your APIs. That's actually interesting. We only have I think it is done this time. Um, let's try to figure this out. We only have a single API but looks like we could possibly be using this for multiple APIs. Let's see. Well, it's the same one. Maybe we should create a second API. Let's go back here. Hello world API. I'm just gonna go here. So that way I can sort of duplicate this asset. Because I don't want to go and add a new API. You know what? Forget it. Let's okay. We live with a single API. We'll go back to data graph. We'll explore the schema. So there's two endpoints that we added, and it says list of APIs. We could have added more APIs here if we had more in this list. Run operation. How do you want to get access? Create a new application and use it immediately. Okay, let's create a new application. Let's give it a name. Snowpal Data Graph App 1. We just go with the defaults. I'm not going to worry about the redirect URI and stuff like that. Okay. Um, I'm not doing a lot of talking here because I'm literally discovering this as I go. And sometimes, if you need the moment of silence to actually digest what you're seeing. So my apologies. Okay. Yeah, this is GraphQL pretty much, right? So I think based on what we read here, it says data graph enables you to connect those graphs into one unified schema that runs as a single SaaS GraphQL endpoint. So if you don't know GraphQL, the fundamental differences between how GraphQL and REST work. We can discuss that in a different, podcast. But one of the differences is the fact that there is a singular endpoint where Graph exposes. So unlike REST, we have endpoints for each of your actions. With Graph, you have single endpoints, and then you have queries and mutations and resolvers and whatnot. So it says that runs as a single endpoint and contains and links all of the fields defined within all of your APIs. So it unifies all of these disparate APIs. So let's actually see new greeting. Okay, I'm going to do that. Today's greeting. Okay, I get. So I'm just writing the simplest of queries, right? And I'm not currently working on graphs, so my graph syntax is going to obviously be a little bit rusty as well. I didn't expect this to be graph. Otherwise, I'd have at least looked at one of our repos that actually uses graph. We cover the gamut as far as our APIs at Snowpal is concerned, so there's no dearth of a place to look for examples. So we have like a TypeScript graph, Mongo, few Mongo repos where we actually do support graph. Anyway, so I'm just printing this out. It's spitting out the value for today's greeting, and I couldn't run this because the token expired. Actually, let's actually do that, right? Let me go back here. Let's actually try to go let me open a new tab with this. Let's actually make a request, send. Let me actually inspect this. Go to network. Let's click send. Okay, and we're going to go here. What are we looking for? We are looking for MS2 authorization, right? So we want to replace that bearer token from here. So let's go get this bearer token. Put that bearer token, replace the value, and we'll try to make the same request, and you're going to get a response there. Okay, it's hello there is today's greeting, right? Just we went back and ran the request. I'm going to close this, and then we go back here. I can close this one as well. Now we see that it returns hello there, right? It's exactly the same as what it's returning here. Actually, why don't we do this? Let's go back to that API. Sorry, I closed it. Greeting or greeting one? That's greeting. So we go here. This UI is not the best. Actually, I was not. Let me go back. to wonder if we should go to the code builder. I think where we were the last time, maybe the design center. Yep, that's where we were. We talked about the RAML and OpenAPI and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, let's go here, change that hello there to hello there, my friend. It's going to save the changes. Oh, we had this issue the last time. It does not, it takes a while for this change. It's auto save. I don't even know if is there a way I can actually explicitly hit save here? I don't need to publish, but I'm hitting that just so I can force that save. Now that I added my friend, they should return my friend, and it sure does. And I will go back to the data graph, and then I will run the same request, and I expect it to see my friend, but it's showing hello there. Maybe we need to, do we need to publish this? I don't think so. This is publishing it to the exchange. I would assume has no bearing on where this data graph is pulling that data from. Let's see. Let's wait for it to do it. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. So let's see. Greeting, try it, send. Hello there, my friend. It says hello there, my friend as well. New greeting. And why is this? Let's see. This is greeting one. Let's go with new greeting one. And it's not today's greeting. I think it was tomorrow's greeting. Okay, that's fine. This is interesting. I'm not sure why it is actually where this is coming from. The hello there with three banks. We updated this. It's not there anymore. We don't have to publish. A little bit unsure where this is picking it up from. Okay, let's go back out of here. It says last updated 11 minutes ago because that's when we updated this. List of APIs were added. New greeting. Let me see if we can actually remove this API, right, that we added. How do I? Let's go to API. How do we delete this? API details. Update version. There is no, maybe we need to publish a newer version. I wouldn't have thought so. This is sharing it with your team. Okay, let me see. Exchange. Publish a new version. Let's see. I'm going to call it version 1.1, but that's on the exchange, so that should actually have no bearing on where this is coming from. But I'm going to still wait for it to. Yep, I didn't expect that to make any difference. It says version 1. What if I wanted a more recent version? Back to data graph. Okay, explore schema. This is the graph endpoint. Unified schema. Nope, it's still the old one. Let's go back here. Is there a way to remove this? How do I remove? Query. PID update version. It doesn't pick up. It says the current version is 1.0.0. There is no updated version according to this. So, update asset version. Exchange set version. If it is the exchange version, then we did publish a new version to that exchange, didn't we? Exchange. Actually, let's go back here. Let's go to the exchange. Yeah, it says updated a minute ago. It's 1.1. So it's got the dev version. Greeting, get, send. Yeah, hello there, my friend. So that is the latest version. So why is this update version not picking up? There's no easy way to get out of the page. Rename field. There's a bunch of mapping that's going on here. Before we get into those details, I just want to get an idea as to where this is actually getting picked up from. Hello World API 100. Our version was, oops, I closed that window. Maybe I should have kept it open on Design Center. Where is okay, actually we should go, let's go to Exchange, because that shows it a bit easy. Yeah, it's v1.1. Latest in development is 20x. But then when we go back to the data graph and do an update version, it doesn't find, it only finds v1, the asset version. Whereas we clearly have v1 and asset version is 1.0.0. Latest in development. Version v1. I know what that version is. That says summary v1, whereas this is v1.1. There's like number of these different versions. This is 2.0.0, 1.1, v1 here. It's a little bit confusing. We could ignore this and continue, but sometimes it bothers me that we don't. Settings. Okay, doesn't matter. List of APIs. We already added them. And I cannot seem to figure out how to delete this API. What happens if I add it again? Asset version. API version is 1. Asset. And I don't want to duplicate it like it says here, but see, asset version, it only picks up 1.0.0. So there is a disconnect. This is 2.0.0. Last published 0 days ago. Still says version v1. I'm going to click publish again. Let's say v1 dot. That's interesting. When I change it to v1.1, the API version, okay, the asset version changes. Okay, let's save it. Still, I don't think this is going to change anything. Yep, it doesn't have. How do we remove this? Let's try. Only ellipses I see is download diagnostic data, running operation, adding an API. Maybe you have to go and remove it. Let's say go in here. Oh, remove, it's right here. Okay, let's remove the API. Okay, now let's add it. Yeah, it doesn't. See, it only pulls up. Why is it only pulling up that version? We'll first need to get an API added. It's able to pick up the Hello World API, but someone's got to tell me if this is a bug or if I'm doing something not so right here. Because I would have expected, where is this v1 1.0.0 coming from? v1. That's v2.0.x. Okay, data graph. Trying to think. I mean, we can go through the tutorial, but it's going to be a digression. It's going to tell you things that we may already know here. Published is December 15th. Yeah, that's not correct because that's from when I did the last podcast 3 days ago. So view and exchange. Published 11 minutes ago. Manage versions. Okay. This is the version. We added a new version. 1.1. Let me promote it to stable. And maybe that's what will make the difference here. I think so. I think we discussed this the last time as well, actually. Okay, let's get out of here. Okay, view and exchange. Updated 32 seconds ago. There is the latest one available. Manage versions. 2.0.1 stable. Instances mocking service. Can add more new versions if you wanted to. Yeah, I don't want to do that though. So I'm still trying to understand why this is not able to pick up the latest changes. Is it something that we did not publish? How long are we into this? Oops. There's too many windows open here. Did I stop recording? Oh no, I'm not. I'm still recording. Let me move this window here. Okay. I think we're like a half hour in. Sorry, we haven't made much progress today, but it's all right. It's well, I want to share a few things that I think I have in my mind. I think I have an idea what data graph actually is here, but I still want to know as we progress. So this is truly how we would possibly be uh, stuck in development, and we'll figure our way out, find our way out of this essentially. What is the one thing that I may not be doing here for it to actually not find it? Should we updated 2 minutes ago? Manage versions. It's only got two versions, 2.0.0 and 2.0.1. Let's say I even delete this previous version. So we only have one version left. Version detail. Okay. And now we go back here, add a new API. Now it picks up v1.1 and 2.0.1. I don't know. This looks like a bug to me. I had a feeling it might have been a bug, but since I've never seen this tool before, yeah, this looks like a bug. See, because we are at 2.0.1 and it shows up here. I don't know. So it does pick up, right? That's what I was expecting. Wherever this API is, there's a new version. It's published. I don't know if there's a lag, or if we did anything differently. Because in the real world, you don't want to delete it and re-add this, right? You're going to pick up the new version. I don't know. Someone who knows better should be hopefully be able to tell us. Let's go through the defaults. Now it doesn't let us. Now it's actually asking us for a URL. It doesn't let's say get an existing URL from the platform, and it says invalid. You need to provide a new one. That seems a little bit strange too, doesn't it? Let's see. So for the previous version, there is a mocking service. Does that mean, is it because, let's see, manage versions, add a new version, development 2.0.2. No, I don't want to add a file outside of this, so that's fine. I'm just trying to see if we could just add a new version, but not by uploading that file. Because for this version, it generates the mocking service. But what if I wanted it for the latest version? We did not find an instance for this API version Anypoint platform. Why? What is the difference? Yeah, that is version, the latest 2.0.1. Stable. There is a URL. Okay, let's copy that. Because when you go pick a first version, if you notice here, what does that URL look like? Anypoint, MuleSoft, mocking, exchange assets, FB, exchange assets, FB, and then Hello World API 1.0.0, and this is 2.0.1, right? /m. So you know what? Let's just pick a new one. I'm just gonna mimic that same URL. Well, we're gonna pick North, pick the defaults, add to unified schema, proceed to unified schema. Okay. Now we added a new version, like you're making some changes to your endpoints in one of the APIs, because you could, based on what we're seeing here, you can have any number of APIs added. At Snowpal, we have like 8 different APIs, for instance, right? So if we go here, we have like 8 different APIs. At this point, that list is growing and thousands of endpoints. So we could add one or two or more of those APIs, expose a select set of endpoints, right? Not all of them, maybe not thousands of endpoints, maybe between multiple APIs, we expose a few endpoints because as a customer, you're interested in a combination of the APIs, but a select set of endpoints in that combination of APIs, if you will. So let's say we add the APIs. We could actually do it the next time. Maybe now that we understand a little bit more what about Data Graph, you can literally add. Let's say if I go to building blocks, snowball.com, this API is one of the APIs got a lot of these endpoints, right? Now, if I go to something called status API, this is another API has a different set of endpoints. Now we can add these two APIs, select hand cherry pick the endpoints that we're interested in, and then add those endpoints into the mix here, right? Into the mix here, and make it part of this unified schema. And then we have a graph endpoint exposed to a single endpoint, which now gives us a way to make sort of federated queries across these APIs, which is pretty cool, right? Because you don't have to write any code to expose the graph endpoints for these underlying APIs. Essentially, is what I'm assuming, looking at what we've looked at in the last like 30 minutes or so. I know I've not done much by way of talking here because I was just trying to digest it, and we did run into a couple of bugs, at least one, maybe more than one on data graph here, unless we did something differently. The versions did not show up. But that's what it looks like. In unify your APIs and use them in a federated manner. But let's try this. Unfortunately, we have only one API. We didn't create a second one. Perhaps exposing, taking the open API spec for the couple of Snowpile APIs, adding them here might actually be quite interesting. Now that think about it, our APIs are pretty big. They have lots of endpoints. It starts testing systems. A lot of the systems, we work closely with different providers, hubs, and they've reported to us that, hey, we are not built sometimes to handle these large number of endpoints. So we've actually been able to help other companies improve their systems along the way. Uh, the reason I mentioned that is also to buy time while this is spinning. Let's see, probably it'll be done hopefully soon. Maybe I'm going to leave that one open for a second. Yeah, I just want to, and we only have, okay, it's done, right? It's done. Let's explore it. I'm curious to just show you the schema, right? So let's go to overview. Let's go to explore the schema. So this, right now, these two endpoints are part of the same API, but I'm pretty sure this basically gives you a collective set of endpoints that come from these different APIs, because you can add any number of APIs here. I'm pretty sure, pretty reasonably certain about it. Okay, now I want to explore the schema. I'm trying to go into, what was the page we went to earlier? That's not the one I'm looking for. GraphQL source. No, I don't want. View API documentation. That might be the RESTful documentation, right? No, that's not what we're interested in. API details. Not this one either. No, that's going to the design center. Let's go back out. I thought I saw something. So explore schema. Where is the graph? Level 1 types, nested types. Why can I not even get in here? Okay. How do is there a visual representation of what we're seeing here? I'm trying to go into the data types of these so I can actually show you or see for myself what the graph equivalent looks like. Let's see. Overview. We're back here on the root page. Unified schema. Oh, is this? I'm actually getting in. It's just the UI is a little bit confusing. Is that what it is? That's greeting one. This is greeting. And it tells us the source APIs and it tells us the field types. Maybe this is the UI for exposing. I mean, I'm used to more like a more traditional GraphQL UI, like on Apollo. I'll probably do a different podcast on that. That's actually quite interesting. The topic of graph is actually very interesting to me. Um, but this is probably the Anypoint UI for seeing the graph content. So this is basically saying what the data type is, right? It says this is returning a string, and it is required to return that string by virtue of the bang there. Response logs. If we did make a request, did we not actually make a request? Let's run an operation. Oh yeah, this is, I think I did run an operation to get in here. This is the UI I was kind of looking for, the more typical graph UI. Okay, let's say new greeting. One. Okay, new greeting. Oh, I thought we had renamed it. Maybe after we deleted, we didn't rename it. Yeah. Hang on, let's just do one at a time first. Oh, 403. The authorization invalid. The session might have expired. Error trying to access the resource. Oh, that's because the URL, I believe we added that manually. That might be causing this issue here. So let's go back out. Hopefully there's a more graceful way of getting out here. Open API list. Okay, I'm back here. Visible. Yeah, we didn't rename the method, right? So this is the actual name. I forgot that after we deleted, added it back, we did not rename the method. API details. Edit URL. So we're using v1 sources, exchange assets, current auth type, no auth. Why is it not actually? So we did manually add the URL. Promote API schema. No, I don't. Okay, I guess this is promoting into a higher environment basically. Okay. Explore schema, run operation. And so back here, I don't lose this window. Let's go back here. So there's a 403. There's an authorization error here. Invalid of the session might have expired. Unauthorized access to this particular resource. I'm quite certain it's because we added that. Let's do this. Let's go back here. Let's go to APIs added. Let's go in here, remove the API. Okay, add this API again. Yeah, that date is certainly wrong. Published to exchange is certainly not 15. Confirm. Okay, let's just pick the previous version. No auth. So this is basically saying you can establish a new way to authenticate this unified schema. However, that needs to, however you choose to implement it, right? Now I picked the previous version. I have to understand better where that URL actually is coming from, right? The mock URL, because this works here, even though we create a new version, still have the mocking service for that version. So there should really be no difference between uh, picking the previous version and doing the schema here and picking the newer version. But we know that it worked when we had the older versions. Only when I use the manual URL, when I manually use this particular URL, it actually did not like it, which is why I went back and deleted it, because we know at least we saw that part of the picture. Now I want to at least run one query and explore the schema for a moment, right? Uh, and perhaps the next time I can actually add real APIs here, our APIs, to see what it, I mean, maybe not the ones where they have hundreds of endpoints. Maybe I can trim it down so it has fewer endpoints, like maybe 10, a pretty small number. And then we have two APIs with collectively 20 endpoints. And we can try playing with that here possibly. If that's of interest, let me know. I'm actually happy to do that. Okay, so let's wait for a minute or two. This, we saw that this actually took a little bit of time, not all that much. And let's run a query. And I want to presume that these two endpoints were coming from different APIs. But imagine you have two different APIs built by two different teams, probably hosted in two different places, on two different cloud platforms. It doesn't matter. Data Graph seems to give you a unified way of accessing those two APIs. The devil, as I always say, is in the detail. You have to see how each of those APIs might have its not might will have its own security mechanism, which may or may not be consistent depending on who the providers are. They could be two different companies or two different teams in the company that actually have different security mechanisms. I want to know how all of those things might need to be wired into from a data graph standpoint. But that gets into the next level of complexity. Here, we're just trying to understand, okay, 45 minutes ago, I had no idea what data graph was. I actually Googled and it pulled up something else. And we spent like a minute looking at it. And as it turns out, Salesforce has multiple products that are called data graph, as I'm understanding it. One that's through MuleSoft, which is what we were looking at. And then there's another one that's probably part of something else called Data Cloud, perhaps. Um, that maybe there are two different products, right? So it's done. So we started not even knowing what data graph is. I think in the last 20 minutes, we've kind of, I want to say, found our way through, right? I'm pretty certain this is what it is. It gives you a unified view of being able to, of different APIs. And then how you expose this graph endpoint to your client, whether it's a mobile app, web app, microservice, doesn't matter. And you actually provide value add. In other words, you could be a middle person, a middle entity that essentially integrates uh, a middle person, a middle entity that essentially integrates uh, disparate systems, different APIs, and exposes a common set of unified schema. I'm just using the language they have there to your clients. Now, those APIs may be built by you in the company. Maybe we should just draw a diagram quickly, but I think we have another 10 minutes ish for an hour. Maybe we can draw something here. But let's actually run the request before I do that. Explore schema and operation. Let's run this. Yep, that works. So we just have to figure out what that 403 was when you're using a different URL. Right now we're getting imagine, right? These are two different endpoints, REST endpoints. Now we collectively able to expose this as a singular request. This is a query. It's very simple. We're not having to type any query variables here. And again, I want to see how mutations work as well. In graph language, if you haven't used graph before, queries are get requests. Mutations are your patch, put, delete, and post requests, right? So let's do an inspect here. Let's go to the network. Let's see. Going to make run the request. See, so now you see the URL is actually /GraphQL. That's a typical graph endpoint URL. I mean, you can obviously change it, but it's a lot of times people just let it be. The request is post. It's a post request, even though it's a query, right? Graph accepts it as a post request, and then it has a response back here. Where you're getting this response. Now, if you explore the schema, this is what I was trying to get to earlier. Explore the schema. It now tells you that there are two endpoints. In graph, it's a singular endpoint, but the schema has two fields, if you will, greeting and greeting one. And then you go into greeting one. It tells you that this actually returns a string. And then you can go back here, look at greeting. In our case, they are pretty much the same. But you can imagine this list actually being a pretty long, complicated list. And now when you put this to test with a lot of endpoints, we can see how this works. So now this is for queries, but you can do the same thing for mutations as well, I'm pretty sure. meaning you are working integrating multiple APIs. If you want to write to different APIs through this singular GraphQL endpoint, then you would be doing that, hosting it on Data Graph on MuleSoft here, which I think is pretty neat. If you think about it, if it actually does what it promises, I have no reason to believe otherwise, even though we ran into a bug or two there. But just a little bit skeptical of systems. Still, I actually have been able to use it, test it, get my feet wet. In a day or two of playing with something, you actually can get a good level of detail, understanding how the dev mechanism works. Whether the process, the model, does it work? Is it scalable? Is it scalable from a development standpoint? Scalable from a runtime standpoint, and more things of that nature. Okay, so we saw, again, this is a very super world's most simple GraphQL query, right? You're getting responses back from two places. I want to get the more recent change here with version 2, but unfortunately, with the URL issue we had, we were not able to get that going. Okay. And then with graph, this is standard graph editor that you're probably used to if you're familiar with graph. And the schema, it's fair straightforward enough to discover it. And you can, this is how graph documentation works. We're not going to go to GraphQL 101 here, but what we've done here, we added an API the other day in the podcast. We've now exposed that through a unified data graph graph schema. We've had only two endpoints that are coming from the same API, but could have had number of endpoints coming from different APIs, and the behavior is going to be quite the same. I reckon. I guess that seems like the promise of this of data graph, right? I think we can look further in terms of credentials, security, and whatnot, but this gives us a pretty good overview. And that's the idea behind this series of podcasts with going through these Salesforce products, is to just get our feet wet and hopefully help people who may be considering using some of these things, right? I think that's about it. We are close to an hour here. I could draw a diagram, but I don't know if I'll be able to do it in the next 6 minutes or so. And I want to try and keep these podcasts to ideally a half hour, but at the higher end, about an hour or so. So I think this was a good exercise. I hope you enjoyed the discovery. The first 20 minutes was very slow, but maybe we did a bit of catching up. And by the end of the hour, we are not at the end of the hour, we're at the end of 50 minutes. We have a pretty good picture as to what data graph is. Now the name a little bit more intuitive now that we know it's GraphQL unification of schemas, and then we looked at how you could use an existing API, REST API, and do it. Now we used one that was created in MuleSoft, but I'm pretty sure it has no bearing on that. You could use any API that's running anywhere else, and then just use data graph to bring that into the mix here. Hopefully you enjoyed that. For in the video, just make sure you check out our APIs. We have plenty of them. So you're building mobile apps, web apps, microservices, and you want to spend your time, effort, and energy and money solving your core customer problems. The backend boilerplate heavy lifting, you should really leave it to somebody else, and that somebody else could very well be us, because I don't know who else is providing APIs that are this rich and this broad and this deep, to be honest with you. Just go to aws.snowball.com or saas.snowball.com to check it out. That's about it in podcast number 5 in the series. We'll talk soon in the next one. Thank you.